Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS with Rachelle, continuing this important series on leadership lessons. This time, I want to focus on the very important topic of testing and adversity. I mean, if we really think about the reality of what's going on in the world today, it symbolizes testing and adversity, particularly from a leadership perspective. I don't care who it is you're leading, what it is you're leading, but adversity and leadership is something that is to be expected. No one has a smooth, just a perpetually smooth leadership ride. I don't care who you are, circumstances change, people change, the environment change, circumstances, whatever the case may be. A lot of people like static type of situations and don't want any change, but folks, there's one thing that's true in life, and that is change. Change is going to come. So we need to be prepared, we need to be open to change, and we need to be responsive to change whenever and however it shows up at our doorsteps. And speaking of change, I want to kick off this episode. I highlighted something a couple of weeks ago, actually a club industry article a couple of weeks ago on Gold's Gym, in which they moved to close a few of their corporate locations in certain markets. But this time I actually want to share some even sadder news. And this comes from, still again, Club Industry Magazine. Pamela Kufal, content director, published this on May 4th at 9:05 a.m. The title of this article is Gold's Gym International Files to Restructure Under Chapter 11 Due to COVID-19 Pandemic. So let me just read a little bit of it. Don't want to get into all of it, but to just give you a little bit of contextual information, it says Gold's Gym International, Dallas, filed for Chapter 11 on May 4th as a way to financially restructure the company after the worldwide shutdown of businesses from the COVID-19 pandemic affected the company. CEO Adam Zaitchev shared with Club Industry. The filing is for the corporate entity and does not involve franchisees who make up the majority of Gold's Gym locations, Zaitchev said. He expects the company will emerge from Chapter 11 by August 1, if not sooner. A quote from him says, "We are filing this to restructure the company, and this is strictly as a result of the pandemic," Zaitchev told Club Industry. "We were on a massive turnaround. We were refranchising stores, awarding company-owned stores to franchisees. We were all over the place growing our business. We were ahead of plan for the year. And then COVID-19 hit, and this is simply our way of acting swiftly to ensure we have a long-term, viable, and sustainable business." And as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, anytime we see something with Gold's Gym, Joel, the late Joe Gold, who's considered the father, informally considered to be the father of the modern day fitness chain. And so whenever, Gold's Gym is having some problems, it's certainly a moment for pause, a moment for reflection, and just to realize that, if Gold's is having some problems, and this is certainly, nothing that's exclusive to Gold's. Fitness facilities, chains across the country are having a lot of problems, a lot of challenges right now. We're going to talk more about those, but it stems back to when we think about, yes, I talk about general fitness topics during Fitness Friday, but as I often like to state, I also discuss the business of fitness, the business side of the fitness industry. And so when we think about the coronavirus pandemic, yes, the coronavirus has been a tremendous threat globally. I mean, we're talking about everything from primary education to folks having to homeschool their kids now, or remote online learning, to higher education, canceling classes and trying to figure out what they're going to do about holding on campus and in-person classes in the fall, to corporate America, to small businesses, and there's the healthcare. There's no sector that has not been impacted dramatically by the coronavirus. It's been a tremendous threat. And so when we drill it down to the fitness industry, you see how the coronavirus has been a very big threat in terms of operations, in terms of, causing, a lot of people to now all of a sudden want and are interested now in online fitness options, and just not feeling comfortable in gym environments. So there's concern about when facilities start to reopen gradually across the country, what is that going to look like, and all of that. So you see this kind of shift towards online, on demand, A lot of folks buying fitness equipment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Rachelle's Home Fitness Center and at the end of this episode as a part of Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge. And so, much like other people, I myself have been buying, fitness items and fitness equipment to add to my collection here at Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. So that in and itself, when you've got folks, avid gym goers, gym rats, like myself, all of a sudden shifting and buying home equipment and things like that, that is a very big threat. So we'll talk more about that at the end, and I want to show off some of my recent purchases. But so we look at Gold's Gym and we see what a threat the coronavirus pandemic has been for Gold's, and it's just it's sad. It always just really just saddens me whenever I see Gold's any whether it's a franchise group situation or the corporate side having challenges. It just, whenever I see Gold's, I'm thinking like, wow, that's essentially in many respects, where all of our modern chains have really emerged from. And so no one is immune. No entity, no fitness chain, no private facility or studio, community-oriented facilities, no facility is immune to the challenges that this pandemic is truly wreaking havoc on many facilities. I'm going to talk next about an article that appeared here in Detroit, and I'm actually going to read the whole article just for context. Sometimes in the interest of time, I'll cut these articles short, but this is one that talks about the reality, and it gives some local examples here. Of course, it's local here to Metro Detroit, but this is something. Some of these challenges that facility owners are facing are certainly symbolic of what is happening across the country. And so this particular article appeared in Crane's Detroit Business on May 1st, 2020, and Kurt Nagel, Nagl, posted this at 12:13 p.m. The title of this article is "Weighty Decisions. Fitness Studios Are Starting to Throw in the Towel After Coronavirus Crunch." So I'm going to read it all. A little lengthy, but it's worth it in terms of getting context and insight. I like to teach by example. This is something that I always do on Fitness Friday, always highlighting different examples as teaching tools. And so I'm going to read this in its entirety. It goes on to state, the glory days of gyms and yoga studios in Metro Detroit might be over in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Heading into spring, the local fitness industry was thriving with scores of chain gyms and boutiques peddling exercises ranging from indoor cycling to Zumba. They were all in the first wave of businesses closed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer when the outbreak began more than a month ago, and they are expecting to be among the last to be cleared for reopening. Which ones make it that far will come down to survival of the fittest and cleanest, and it's anybody's guess whether customers will return even for gyms that make it through the heart of the storm, or whether there are ways the fitness industry can overcome customers' aversion to germs after months of social distancing. Bar Method, a bar studio in downtown Detroit, is among the first casualties of the coronavirus outbreak in the local industry. It opened in 2018 and will close permanently Thursday, according to an email sent this week to studio members by co-owner Christina Carroll. Classes were fuller than ever, and new clients were coming in with an enthusiasm that boosted our spirits and put us on a sustainable track as a business after having operated very much in the red for the previous 2 years. COVID-19 threw us a major curveball, the letter said. Unfortunately, when I look out on our business today, I no longer see a clear path to profitability. Carol's letter referred members to Live Cycle Delight, a fitness studio that opened in Detroit's West Village in 2017. Owner Amina Daniels has decided she will try to see operations through to the other side, though she's uncertain what it will look like and unsure how she'll be able to keep paying rent. There's going to be a significant reduction in participation from seniors, from people who are furloughed, from people who don't feel comfortable coming in, Daniel told Cranes. If you do not have a Dan Gilbert landlord, a lot of landlords are still wanting full rent, she said, referring to the billionaire Quicken Loans Incorporated chairman who said a month ago that his real estate company Bedrock LLC would suspend rent payments for the next 3 months to its small business, retail, and restaurant tenants. The U.S. fitness industry brings in more than $32 billion annually, with 62.5 million gym members, according to the International Health, Racquetball, and Sports Club Association. Michigan is home to 1,000 gyms, to which many residents retreat during colder months. The industry had been on pace for a record year until the coronavirus outbreak put it on life support. America's fitness industry is one of the hardest hit by the forced closures mandated by the coronavirus crisis, according to the association. Daniels, who runs 2 studios in Detroit, said she lost $12,000 in revenue last month after shutting down March 16th per Whitmer's orders. She projects another $20,000 lost in April. Her bills have not been suspended. We still have full rent due, accounts receivable, utilities. It's not enough support, Daniels said. I think you will see more studios that aren't able to hang on. Daniels said she applied for the federal Paycheck Protection Program assistance when it first became available, but has not heard back. She, along with a handful of staff members, are teaching a few classes remotely, but the business remains mostly in a holding pattern. Larger chains are certainly feeling the strain, but corporate support puts them in a better position to endure. Florida-based franchise giant Orange Theory Fitness, which has 22 locations in Michigan, is preparing for the all-clear from the governor, whenever that may be, said Scott Marcus, who operates the 8 Metro Detroit locations and has franchise development rights for the state. Marcus said he rehired on Monday around 25 of his 100 Metro Detroit employees who were temporarily laid off. Their job now is to work the phones and convince members to eventually come back. Equally important, they are placing orders for masks, hand sanitizer, and other sanitation products in hopes of getting ahead of the race for personal protective equipment, as businesses are required to provide masks and other PPE to employees before they can reopen. The gyms will also be equipped with disinfectant fogging machines to sanitize entire rooms. We are not looking to be first to open, Marcus said. It's not a race that we're looking to win. We do want to open, but we want to make sure it's done correctly and safely. Marcus said his Metro Detroit locations have so far lost more than $1 million in sales after all member accounts were put on hold due to the shutdown. Some of that has been offset by the several $100,000 in assistance he received from the Paycheck Protection Program. He declined to disclose the exact amount, but said it will be used as intended for rent and payroll. The greatest threat for fitness businesses, big or small, is what happens after the doors open again. Even the most stringent cleaning protocols won't ease everyone's fears. Gym owners hold out hope that members will be eager to return after weeks of being cooped up at home. Marcus said he still expects to retain up to 90% of his members. People are there not just to exercise, but a lot are there for the community feel we have, he said. Members want to be somewhere that's familiar, it's comfortable, it feels normal. Many gyms adapted quickly with online classes that have kept members engaged, but for the most part have not generated income like normal operations. Shortly after being forced to close, Rebel Cycle Studio in Detroit owner Amy Ladawick rented out 15 spin bikes to clients for $75 a month. They were snatched up almost immediately. Fitness equipment of nearly every variety is on back order online as the demand for at-home exercise gear soars. The dumbbell has become the toilet paper of the fitness world. Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist are loaded with listings for exercise equipment, much of which is laughably overpriced. Combined with donations from members, Ladawick cycle rentals are generating about 25% of the revenue the business had before. Not quite enough to cover rent. Ladawick, who is also a full-time teacher at Wayne State University, wants to reopen the studio she started in 2018, but she's also a realist. Her business is her passion, not her livelihood, and she's bracing for the possibility of permanently closing. We only occupy 800 square feet. We are already sort of in a sardine can, which wasn't an issue prior, but it is now, she said. So my concern is that if I were to stay, even mid-June, everybody came back, we're going to be packed in a very small enclosed space. I don't know how comfortable I feel about that. I don't know how my members feel about that. Ladowek said she has not applied for any financial assistance. I definitely didn't feel like talking or taking that money away from other businesses in the city whose businesses is their livelihood, she said. For Daniels, closing is not an option. I do understand that it is going to be a challenge, she said. It's going to be like opening the studio for the first time. Testing, 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 adversity. So, one hallmark here of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS has been since the inception in 2014, since I've been doing this. On the video episodes, one of my biggest commitments, biggest goals, is to tell you the truth. Is to tell you the truth. And part of that is because I'm in a situation where my goal for these episodes, Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS, as well as general Posi-TIPS on non-Fitness Friday, is to tell the truth and to help people. Because I know, and people, particularly on Fitness Friday, I get feedback such as, Rachelle, I learned things from these episodes I never really thought before. You really kind of, put some ideas in my head that I couldn't consider. And you really kind of, challenge me to think about what I'm doing and how am I doing and is it working? Absolutely. And I tell you that because it's easy for me to do this because I'm not in a position where I'm concerned about losing a job working for you. I mean, that's truly what it comes down to. That's truly what it comes down to. You may have leaders, you may have managers who are having a lot of concerns, a lot of issues right now that are reluctant to bring those to your attention fully because there is concern about what if I lose my job or what if I make it seem like I'm not equipped or confident in my ability to handle the upcoming challenges. And so my goal is to always just talk to you straight from the heart and to tell it like it is. And particularly around this pandemic situation as it relates to fitness facilities, leaders, owners, corporate chains, private entities, community entities are in for a very big test. A very big test. I mean, yes, the testing happened, when facilities were closed, and there's been a kind of a gradual process as we move through this process, but when facilities are given the clear to open in this particular article, and that's why I thought it was very well written and certainly captured the concerns and the real life challenges faced by owners here in Metro Detroit. And yes, you may argue, well, Metro Detroit is a big area, it's a big market, I'm the only game in town. Folks, no one is going to come away from this coronavirus pandemic on a personal or professional level untouched. I mean, it is impacting each and every one of our lives, and this is certainly true from the standpoint of the unknowns in terms of when facilities open, how many members are going to return, how many members are going to be able to afford to have a membership. And one thing we have to keep in mind about the fitness industry is yes, while the International Health Sports Racquetball Association, while yes, they as this article pointed out, 62.5 million memberships in this country, fitness facility memberships. And so, but one thing we always have to keep in mind is that number is not, that number certainly represents the absolute raw number of memberships held. That is not representative of the total number of people that actually use their memberships. So one thing we have to keep in mind is that, particularly when we're talking about general fitness facilities, in which, there's thousands of members, sometimes hundreds of members, and there's not that type of accountability that you don't see at the smaller boutique level. An example I'll give you is right here, a few years ago, I was doing a lot of research here in different facilities, and I went into Title Boxing Club in Farmington Hills, and I so remember that, just getting a tour and learning more about that facility and the overall chain and things like that. Did some additional research on the overall chain, and I so remember the person who gave me the tour that day said, at the time, so this would have been about 2015. At the time, there was a 14-day marker. So if they had a member that hadn't stepped foot in that facility in 14 days, that triggered a phone call from the facility to that member saying, hey, we miss you, what's going on? We want you to come back, yada, yada, yada. And actually, when I went to the grand reopening of right here at I Love Kickboxing in Novi, that young lady was working in the morning, said the same thing. But see, you have to understand, from a business model concept, they have far fewer members. And so their memberships are more expensive than you would see typically in the general fitness arena, with the exceptions of the outlier being, of course, Lifetime Fitness on the more expensive end, and in Equinox Fitness is certainly more on the expensive end even than Lifetime. But so these smaller boutiques are more expensive, but they are very, in many respects, accountability driven. So losing 5 members to one of those boutique facilities for an owner in that particular situation, or franchisee, really stings. And so there's that greater accountability, because research has shown, you can do your research on your own. I don't have time to get into that, but the more expensive a fitness facility membership is, and if an individual does not go, particularly on a regular basis, there's a greater likelihood that membership will be canceled. So there's correlations between cost and membership cancellation. And so we have to kind of keep all of these things in mind, where the coronavirus threat is certainly a threat, yes, to the overall fitness industry and the overall fitness facilities themselves, but the more expensive ones, the group-oriented ones. I love kickboxing, CrossFit, fitness together. You're smaller, and that's a one-on-one trainer and member type of concept. So we got to think, even facilities, general fitness facilities that are very personal training focused, heavily focused on personal training, where they're generating anywhere between 20 to 40 to 50% of revenues from personal training. What is this going to mean for their facilities? But so we always want to keep these nuances in mind as we're thinking about the impact and what is happening on individual facilities. But these smaller boutique facilities it's just a very big challenge, because if a membership, an unlimited membership, is $150 a month at a boutique facility, and someone has been furloughed or they lost their job, it's a greater challenge in terms of potentially being able to continue to pay for that membership, as opposed to a lower cost facility. But there's going to be no exceptions. There's going to be no type of facility, no chain of facilities that is going to be unscathed by this particular pandemic. It's going to affect them all to varying degrees. So we have to keep that in mind. And so my challenge to you is to think about, what type of scenarios, what type of forecasting scenarios have you done so far? If you think about 20% of your members don't come back, 40% of your members don't come back, 50% of your members don't come back. And yes, this is very membership focused, thinking about your customers, thinking about your members, but also there is going to be disruption to personnel, to the folks that work for you. How comfortable are they going to feel coming back? How comfortable are they going to feel in terms of the enhanced cleaning procedures that are going to be required, and protocols that are going to be required for facilities? And something that I've often believed is that part of the challenge in terms of employee retention for Planet. So, and I've said this before, from a member perspective, those wonderful, rigorous cleaning standards are great from membership perspective, from member perspective, wonderful. But from an HR, from a human resources, from an employee retention, yes, certainly, but an acquisition standpoint, it's more of a challenge, because there's, even pre-COVID, well before COVID, a lot of cleaning was required from that facility, and so you've got some turnover that's a result of that. People feel like they're cleaning too much. You can see it constantly in the reviews on Glassdoor.com, Indeed.com. And so now when we think about that cleaning, that highly rigorous cleaning protocol oriented culture of Planet Fitness is now going to be required for all facilities. I mean, if they really want to survive this thing, it's very, very important that cleaning is going to need to be, to borrow from the vernacular, on point. The cleaning is going to need to be, sanitation is going to be needed to really be taken up several notches. And so this is going to, require you to think about from a staffing standpoint, from an hours of operation standpoint. We've seen heard some notions of, facilities are going to be closing down at certain points of the day in order for the staff members to really clean. So is it going to be, or facilities, particularly those that are open 24 hours, are they going to spend time overnight closed now to deep clean? Because there is going to be a drop in folks attending. So these are all concerns. These are all things that need to be thought about long and hard during this time, because this is about to be, it already is a very big challenge and a time of testing. And that's the thing about life. Adversity comes to all of us. There is no exception to the rule. There's no exception to that. No one lives a perfect life. None of us is perfect. And so we just need to accept that and recognizing that adversity and testing, hard times, difficulty, members leaving your facilities in droves and you're wondering what you're going to do. I mean, those type of situations really show what you're made of. That's the beautiful thing about adversity. Adversity shows what you're made of. And if it's handled correctly, adversity will develop your character and enhance your character if you allow it to make you better and not bitter. So think long and hard about what decisions need to be made. And in this same vein, I want to highlight, I've been holding on to this athletic business article here for a while. So this was a February 2020 edition. And so in the owner's corner, as I mentioned last year, Rob Bishop's last column was last summer for the Owners Club. And so he was replaced by Chris Stevenson. And so I read this back in January and I held on to this because he makes some really good points. This is, as you see, a very long article I'm not going to reference except only the initial point here that I think makes a very good point in terms of decision making. And truly, what is this about? What is this a time of making decisions? So many owners, many franchisees, many private facility studio owners, community-oriented facility owners are in the process now and have been in the process of making decisions. And so it's important, particularly for all of us, as we're thrust into the middle of adversity, we have to be very careful about the decisions that we make because they can impact our lives, they can impact our business, they can impact our future. And so it's very important that we really take a step back and think long and hard about the decisions we need to make and make sure that we're making them with a level head. So Chris Stevenson's article here is entitled, "In Decision Making, Real Always Trumps Feel." So he goes on to say, "There's a concept we have used for years that has helped us tremendously with our ability to make good decisions when running health clubs. It's called real versus feel. The idea is that when it comes to decision making, it is always best to go with real as opposed to feel. Feel is based on emotion and theory. Real is based on data and facts." So we're in the midst of a pandemic situation. Things are very emotional. Things are very chaotic. There's a whole lot of uncertainty. There's fear of the unknown. There's all of that. So if there's any time, there's never been probably a greater time in our lifetimes to make some emotional decisions which could turn out to be very poor decisions in the long term. It's right now. And so I was holding on to this and I said at some point in a leadership series in 2020, I've got to highlight this. And I said, this is a really good one to highlight right now. You can certainly Google athletic business and Google Chris Stevenson's name, Owners Club. But he does a good job every issue. But it's just so important to think long and hard. What is the data telling you? How many cancellations have you had? What are things looking like? How are your finances? What was your financial position before COVID? Look long and hard. What is the data telling you? Data-driven decisions. When I go back to my graduate school in Northwestern in Chicago, folks, I so remember that was such a big emphasis on decision making was data. What does the data tell you? What does the data tell you? What does the data tell you? What are your prospects like? What are your prospects realistically? Is there a way, if you're a private gym owner, is there a way you can offer remote classes as well? Is there something you can do online? Can you have one-on-one personal training via an app for your trainers? What can you do? What can you do? What changes can you make? But it's so important, as I stated before, that we not make decisions based on clouded emotions, fearful emotions, angry emotions, fretful emotions, anxious and worried and just chaotic, out of control emotions. Yes, it's normal to be emotional, particularly during this time. This isn't condemning anyone for because this is an emotional time. But that's all I'm saying is being careful about the decisions that you make. Be careful, and this is true not only with this pandemic, but this is true in life. It's often stated, be careful. If somebody's had a major loss in their life, be careful about decisions within that first year. That's, again, just kind of a off the cuff advice that's often given to people. It's commonly said, just be careful about emotional decisions, because in many cases, emotional decisions are bad decisions. So looking at the data, analyzing the data, enables us to take a more objective view of the situation. Emotions are going to push us one way or the other, just human nature. That's just how we react. But looking at the data, evaluating the data, letting the data speak to us and drive decisions is so important. So important. So important. And you wonder why on the second half of this leadership lesson series, I started out the second half of the series discussing truth, your relationship with truth, how you feel about truth, because that is fundamental. That is fundamental, particularly to leadership. So important, because a person that has a hard time dealing with the truth is not going to want to look at data. It's just, they're going to want to say, no, this is what my heart is telling me. And yes, sometimes our hard decisions can be right, but at least if you're going to do that, if you're going to make some hard decisions, balance those decisions, each and every one. We're looking at the data. What's the data? What is the data telling me? My heart is telling me, I'm committed to the fitness industry, and I've been in the fitness industry for 20 years. I'm owning my own facility, and this is a challenging time. The data says this, but my heart is telling me this is what my life purpose is, an individual may say. I'm committed to the long term. My heart is telling me, hang in there. That's wonderful, but also let the data dictate the initial steps, and even now strategizing in terms of operations, in terms of product and service offerings, in terms of staffing and leadership, who's running your facility or facilities. That is so important, because yes, not only are you being tested, but your facility, your staff members are about to be tested. Once all of these facilities start to reopen, because one thing we're seeing now is that there's people that are doing cursing out when staff members of various retail stores or whatever the case may be are trying to enforce wearing masks and other guidelines that were come down from the CDC or Centers for Disease Control, social distancing, all of that. You have stores in which employees are being cursed out, being threatened with violence, and here in the state of Michigan, we had one of a dollar store, it was a Family Dollar employee, a security guard, was shot and killed for essentially telling a person, you need to be, practicing some of these safety guidelines. And so things are happening to the staff members and employees that are tasked with enforcing these guidelines. It's all about safety, and it's all about, it's just so clear to me why we need to be doing all of this, and we need to protect ourselves, and we need to protect other people. But you're going to have some members that don't like to be told what to do, that don't want to be told what to do, that are going to want to do exactly what they want to do. And so you and your staff need to be prepared for that. How are you going to handle particularly the enforcement issues that are certain to arise? Because in a fitness facility situation, like yes, in a retail situation, the angry person who's mad about being told that he or she can't enter the store because they need to wear a mask, that person can curse out the employee or the staff member and threaten to never come back and this and that. But in a fitness facility situation, think about how this can play out. Yes, that person can curse out the employee, threaten the employee, but also go the extra step of canceling that membership, saying I'm being done. I'm done with this. So we need to be, when we talk about enforcement, it needs to be fair, it needs to be equitable, and it needs to be consistent. It needs to be consistent. And I've been mentored by a number of attorneys, just wonderful influence in my life, vis-a-vis the Northwestern Alumni Association. And so you got to think about the potential legal exposure of having inconsistently enforced rules and guidelines and standards. So just be fair, be equitable, think long and hard about what you're doing. You want to do the right thing. Just, it's on a basic human level. Just do the right thing. People just be fair. That's where people get angry, when they see other people doing something and then they're being told they have to do something else, and the person who's not doing it is not being penalized or there's no consequences. So we just got to be fair. Do the right thing. So think long and hard about, again, what decisions and what are your protocols, enforcement protocols. What protocols do you have in place? And what potential legal exposure is there for unequitably enforcing the protocols, guidelines, and standards. You want to be fair. That's just it from the bottom line. And so, folks, and speaking of fair, this is going to be the last content before I close this episode out with Rachelle's Coronavirus Challenge and some updates from Rachelle's Home Fitness Center here. And that's one thing. If you watch me long enough, you recognize I don't play favorites. If you saw me, if you watched me when I was at Powerhouse, I don't play favorites. And so as a leader, and this is of course something that we all have to work on. We want to be fair. We don't want to play favorites and all of this and that, particularly in a role like this, where people are not listening to Fitness Friday to hear me be a cheerleader for one particular gym or chain or entity or anything like that, fitness modality, absolutely not. And so I always like to have the mindset where I'm standing on the sidelines, essentially, reporting on what's going on and what's happening, what I'm seeing, what I'm reading. And I look back to my undergraduate years when I was in Louisiana, and I smile sometimes, and I think about, while I was a public relations major, well, technically I was a double major in public relations and Spanish. So I came into an undergraduate, I wanted to be a translator, and it just was not enough of a challenge for me. So just in terms of translating, it's a wonderful profession, but just my personality, I'm highly extroverted, and I just need to be, constant change and all of this and that. But anyway, it was a perfect fit, Spanish and public relations. But it came from the College of Liberal Arts, but it was under a journalism and mass communication program. And so I had to take 3 classes in journalism. And I remember looking back and I remember thinking, journalism, and I remember the news writing course that I took with the late John R. Tabor. He passed away a few years ago, and he had retired to South Louisiana. But anyway, and I so remember just some of those fundamental lessons now. I mean, I didn't appreciate him so much then, but I appreciate him now. Where it's just basically, you just picture you're reporting on what happened, you're reporting on what you read, you're reporting on what you see. It's important to be objective. And so I look back now and I lean on some of those early lessons that just, give me the ability to just say, hey, I'm not perfect, and I'm a human being, but it's very important that I be objective in these Fitness Friday episodes when we're laying this information. And so I don't play favorites. And so you've heard me, since I've been talking about the second half of these leadership lessons, one topic that has certainly come up in terms of operations and what's going on and how the pandemic has impacted the industry and how entities, fitness facility entities have responded to the pandemic is the legal issues. Talked about Town Sports International, Boston Sports Club, New York Sports Club, and some of these folks, 24-Hour Fitness, a number of chains, a number of entities are facing class action lawsuits based on charging members during the pandemic when their facilities had already closed. So charging member dues, but then also making the cancellation process difficult even during the pandemic. And I highlighted the very first time I talked about this, the force majeure clause, and how that's impacting what is going on in terms of fitness facility members being able to cancel even after having signed a contract, and how this pandemic creates a whole new set of legal implications around that. So a number of chains are now dealing with class action lawsuits, and saw the latest one in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Bill Rankin published this article on May 1st here, 2020. Title of the article is, and I'm going to read the whole article, Lawsuit Targets Planet Fitness for Fees During Coronavirus Pandemic. I don't play favorites. A DeKalb County man has filed a federal lawsuit against Planet Fitness saying the company wrongly charged his bank account a monthly fee while his fitness center was closed because of the coronavirus pandemic. The suit, filed Thursday by Antonio Holloway, seeks class action status on behalf of other members of Planet Fitness's workout centers. It is among similar lawsuits filed against fitness centers across the country. In an April 16th post on the Planet Fitness website, CEO Christopher Rondo said the company had proactively frozen all memberships on your behalf, and you will not be charged any fees during this time. An accompanying FAQ on the company's website acknowledged that, because of the timing of the shutdown, some members were billed shortly before some centers were closed. Rest assured that you will not be charged for any days when the club was closed, the company said. We will make an adjustment on your next billing cycle when we reopen. On Friday, McCall Gosselin, the company's senior vice president of communications, said, "We can confirm that the plaintiff was not billed while the local facility was closed due to COVID-19, and we believe this lawsuit is without merit." The lawsuit paints a different scenario. A Planet Fitness member since 2016, Holloway worked out at a Stone Mountain Center until it closed during the first week of March. On March 18th, Holloway's bank account was debited the $19.99 monthly fee for his Black Card membership, which gave Holloway unlimited access to any of the company's fitness centers, the lawsuit said. When he tried to contact Planet Fitness, Holloway was given a phone number with a message stating the center's facilities were closed with no option to request a refund, the lawsuit said. Rather than providing adequate customer service to address wrongly collected charges, Planet Fitness and its franchisees have hidden behind a single, inaccurate statement on their website regarding the charges, the lawsuit said. The suit contends Planet Fitness should be found liable for breach of contract, violation of Georgia's consumer protection laws, and unjust enrichment. Holloway's lawyers are seeking to represent all members of Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness is approximately 1,900 fitness centers nationwide who were also charged membership fees after the gyms were closed. In the alternative, the suit seeks class action status to represent all Planet Fitness members in Georgia. Although Holloway lost just his $19.99 March membership fee, the possible exposure to Planet Fitness exceeds $5 million if the case receives class action status, the lawsuit said. So that is what's going on with Planet Fitness. Has now been added to the list of class action, status in this coronavirus pandemic. And to take it one step further, topclassactions.com, and that's class action lawsuit, so topclassactions.com, Stephen Cohn on May 1st, 2020, published an article entitled Planet Fitness Class Action Says Members Charge Regardless of COVID-19. So this one actually goes into more detail, and so it's just to pull out a little bit of this. It says the plaintiff, so highlighting the class action lawsuit that was filed. It says the plaintiff also alleges that many other Planet Fitness members have suffered the same post-closure charges and are facing the same obstacles as the plaintiff in their attempt to obtain a refund. Common questions of fact and law in this case are, number one, whether the defendant engaged in the wrongful alleged conduct. Number two, whether the defendant violated state laws in charging the March 2020 membership fees without permitting access to their fitness centers. Number three, whether the defendant breached his contract with the plaintiff and class members. And number four, whether the defendant misrepresented unlimited access to their gyms while continuing to charge the plaintiffs and class members after closure. And to continue on, the plaintiff notes that the defendant has entered into a contract with the plaintiff and class members to provide access to their fitness centers in exchange for the payment of membership fees. Holloway states that Planet Fitness breached these contracts by charging and retaining the plaintiff's membership fees even though the gyms were closed. In connection with the sale of their fitness center memberships, defendants issue an express warranty that plaintiff and class members would have unlimited access to all fitness center locations the Planet Fitness class action lawsuit claims. This is not the first lawsuit to be filed against the gym for charging membership fees when the fitness center has been closed because of the coronavirus. So it goes on to talk about the New York Sports Club, and let me skip here, and it says there are two prospective classes in the Planet Fitness class action lawsuit. The first is a national class, which includes all persons in the United States who were charged membership fees by defendants after their fitness centers were closed due to the COVID-19 virus. The second, The Georgia class includes all persons in Georgia who were charged membership fees by defendants after their fitness centers were closed due to COVID-19 virus. The plaintiff is represented by Andrea S. Hirsch of the Hirsch Law Firm and Tina Wolfson of Adut and Wilson PC. The Planet Fitness refund class action lawsuit is Antonio Holloway versus Planet Fitness Franchising LLC et al. Case number 120 CV01868-CAP in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. And so this was a lengthy article. I didn't read the top portion of it, but it's indicative to what's going on during this coronavirus pandemic. And so that's what's going on. That's what's going on, and it's important, particularly in this instance, because with Planet Fitness, from a facility standpoint, from a chain standpoint, is the market leader, so the most number of members, and so this is going to play out as is true for other class action lawsuits against facilities. So that's why I'm saying, you're thinking long and hard about what is impacting, what are the impacts on your business going to be. So if a competitor, just hypothetically given a scenario, if a Planet Fitness competitor gets wind of this and they can all of a sudden start promoting, we're not in a class action lawsuit status, or we haven't had any issues. I mean, we could really go down a real rabbit hole with this whole concept. But just from a competitive standpoint, anytime anyone is facing litigation, that can be an opportunity for a competitor to exploit, to say, well, we're not doing that, or we're not being accused of that, or whatever the case may be. So this whole issue of charging members, billing members, as I've stated, seems like every episode during the second half of this, it has been every episode, I just keep bringing up this concept, the billing issue, the cancellation policies, have dogged this industry for years. But this one right here, this class action, is going to be, certainly a high visibility lawsuit because of the entity and the number of members that it has, and just thinking about the disruptive potential of all of this, depending on how it plans out and what that means for their competitors, and how many of them are going to feel comfortable after being part of this class action, continuing their membership, or then now leaving and having attrition over to competitors. So there's just a whole lot of dynamics here that I can't get into. And so this whole billing issue, cancellation issue, and that's one thing when I look back, and since 1994, May 17th, 1994, I haven't been a problem. I haven't had issues with billing, and I'm a happy Planet Fitness member. I don't have any problems with this, but I have to tell the truth. I have to point this out. The Planet Fitness is actually now part of a class action. I can't let my membership, impede me from pointing this out, as I have done with other chains. So while I haven't had any issues, the only issue in terms of commercial facility, and that was one that I've had in the past, and that was when I was a member of Bally here in Novi, and they closed in June 2012, and I left and went to Powerhouse. But then, even though Bally had no presence in this area, they charged me for the next year and said that I can go to any LA Fitness in the area, because Bally's was bought out by LA Fitness, and so that I was not made aware of that. The membership continued on at the very discounted rate. To be honest with you, it was like I was paying $99 a year, and that continued rate was like $150 because I didn't have a lifetime membership at Bally. And so it was a great rate, but it was just, the locations for me at the time in 2012 were very far. So I sent that certified letter to corporate in Irvine, California, told them to cancel that membership and don't ever charge me again. So I haven't had any problems. And even in spite of that, I still think very highly of LA Fitness. I would join an LA Fitness in a heartbeat. And so it just depends on, but everyone's reaction to that, billing problems and cancellation problems, it really leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths in terms of the fitness industry. And this is part of the overall looking at the fitness industry on a macro level. Certainly one of the weaknesses of the industry. I don't care what type of facility, chain, public, private, community. It's something that has dogged this industry is billing and cancellation policies, as I've mentioned. So think long and hard about what's going on. Make sure you're making decisions based on data. And we'll get through this. It will be fine. We'll never be, life won't be the same. Life is certainly the paradigm of our everyday life, and everyday fitness operations has certainly changed. But we keep a good attitude, control what we can control, and keep on keeping on and pressing on. So I'm going to wrap this episode up by highlighting Rachelle's coronavirus challenge. So what did I do when this pandemic first hit, as I do with all types of adversity. And so I always ask myself, like, how is this going to make me a better person? How am I going to learn? How am I going to grow? How am I just going to become a better human being? I mean, this is one of my strengths is handling adversity. People that know me, people are like, Rachelle, you're the most positive, happy, upbeat person. Even the world may be falling apart, but no one would ever look at you and know it. But that's because part of that is just my mindset. I just know that adversity is an unparalleled time for growth. Like now, this coronavirus challenge, this coronavirus pandemic is shifting paradigms. It's shifting paradigms. It's causing people to do things that they should have done years ago, even within the fitness industry, in terms of fitness operations and facilities. We should have done this back in 2010, but now this pandemic is forcing us to make these necessary changes, forcing us to integrate and adopt technology, forcing us to have more of a personalized, interactive, hands-on relational approach with our members in order from a retention standpoint. We can't afford to take them for granted and just have kind of a treadmill, pardon the pun, just a treadmill of people coming in and out of the club. And so I want to highlight, several weeks ago, and I mentioned, again, we were earlier on in the pandemic, and I just started working out at home. So my very first workout at Rachelle's Home Fitness Center was Saturday, March 21st. So my last workout at my gym, Planet Fitness in Commerce Township, was that Monday the 16th. So that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I actually went to the 12 Oaks Mall and walked in the mornings, power walked in the mornings. And then that Friday, that's when I got a text, actually Thursday morning when I was in there walking. Somebody sent me a text and said, Rachelle, I just saw on the news, the mall's closing tomorrow. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And I've always been such a very big gym fanatic and just love gyms and was raised in gyms, with my dad, running them and having leadership roles in them. And I was like, what am I going to do? But anyway, I'm going to cut that long story short. And so that Saturday morning, Rachelle hit it. Rachelle's Home Fitness Center was founded that morning. And so what I have done, and I just look back now, and actually next Friday's episode, I'm actually been doing that episode from Rachelle's A Spot, one of the sections of Rachelle's Home Fitness Center, because my 26th fitness anniversary is on May 17th. And you notice I've changed that. I usually say gym fitness anniversary. And so the 26th anniversary now is now Rachelle's 26th fitness anniversary, because that gym, for the time being, has been removed. So I can tell you folks, over the weeks, working out at home has really grown on me. And I know here in Michigan, at least for now, the gyms are closed until May 28th. And one thing I realized that, Rachelle's Home Fitness Center, that has been a very big fitness test for me initially. Like, what am I going to do? Working out at home is just not for me. I need a gym, yada, yada. But no, it is really grown on me, and I really get a kick. And people have texted me like, Rachelle, I can't believe you're saying this, but I'm getting such a kick out of working out at home. I never in a million years would have ever done it on my own. So see, that's what I'm saying. This pandemic forces us, it causes us to shift, evaluate our mindsets, look at all of our options. And I realize now, particularly when in inclement weather situations, I look back on my history. Of course, when I lived in Dearborn, here in Dearborn, Michigan, one of our suburbs, when I first moved to Michigan, I was a member of the Ford Community and Performing Arts Center. So that was less than a mile from my apartment back in the day. Powerhouse Gym, Bally's Gym was about 2.5, 3 miles from my house. And Powerhouse Gym was less than a mile from my house. So I was there for 5 years. And so I have been very fortunate that I have lived fairly close to my gyms, particularly while living up north. So in terms of inclement weather, it hasn't really had an impact. And so now, since my gym, of course, is 10 miles each way, I realize now just what the impact that has had, where I've just had to, if it's 6 inches on the ground, well, I can't work out today, or I'm going to alternate and go to the Novi location later in the day once the roads and stuff have been cleared. So that was my plan B, a good plan B. I was very grateful to the Planet, my first Planet location actually, being there and being available and being a resource during those times. But I look back now and I think, now my ace in the hole for inclement weather is Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. I mean, bam. The answer is right there without a doubt. I'm just like, I got it right here at my house. So I'm doing HIIT training again. I am doing yoga and Pilates again. And so, stuff that I hadn't done since I left Powerhouse. And so I just want to show you a few little things here that are part of Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. And so this actually is my yoga mat. So I actually bought this. I had this when I was at Powerhouse. So those who were watching this who knew me at Powerhouse recognize. So I've still got my mat. And I'm just so glad that I kept all of these items here at Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. I want to show you this because it's actually pretty big. So, finding an exercise ball, and that article that at Crane's Detroit that I read today that just talked about just the scarcity of going into stores and being able to find stuff, and online they have very long lead and wait times to get your stuff. So, had difficulty, I myself, once I got very comfortable with working out at home, and Rachelle's Fitness Center was a go, I thought to myself, okay, I got to get some new things, because that's one thing about me. I need variety, I need change. Even at Rachelle's Home Fitness Center, I don't do the same workout every day. It constantly changes because I get bored. And so finding an exercise ball during these days is quite a challenge. So Rachelle went on over to Walmart and got this kiddie ball from the Play Center, and it has been just great. It has been working just great. And you see it actually somewhat matches my yoga mat. So I thought that was just so cool. Another purchase for Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. Yes, a basketball. I used to have a basketball. That I would bring to Powerhouse. They had a basketball court, and so yes, Rachelle bought a basketball. And you're asking yourself, okay, Rachelle, does your condo complex have a basketball court? Does it have some hoops? The answer is no. But right here at Rachelle's home, I have very high cathedral ceilings in all of my rooms. Living room, dining room, bedroom, master bedroom. The guest bedroom doesn't, but so I actually shoot hoops without a hoop. So Rachelle's getting some basketball shots off here at the house, with the ball falling on a bed or the couch. So Rachelle is continuing to make it happen, but there's also drills and stuff that I can do with the basketball that I still do, and so again, and this also doubles as a medicine ball. This also doubles as a medicine ball that I use for those type of fitness, for those fitness activities I do as part of my routine. And as a part of that, you notice that I actually ordered a ball pump, just a air pump. And so now, again, when I had a different basketball at Powerhouse, I never had a pump, and it would always go flat, and I have to buy another one. So the purchase, actually, when I think about this, the first new thing I bought for Rachelle's Home Fitness Center was this basketball. And then I ordered this. So when you think about when I ordered this pump, I was basically committing to say, I'm in this for the long term. I mean, this is something Rachelle's Home Fitness Center is always going to be an option. So when I realized, when I started making little purchases and things like that, that showed that actually when I realized I started doing that, that's when I knew, like, this home fitness center thing is a go, because I'm starting to really get some things to get it together. So I got 2 yoga blocks. This is one of them. I had this from my Powerhouse days. So yes, continuing to use that. Now this, of course, is my baton. Now I used to twirl baton on the basketball court, and so don't have the space. Like, I just don't feel comfortable, doing this baton in my house. I just want to be in a big open out space somewhere. So perhaps when the weather warms up, this I'll regain my baton twirling again that I used to do in my routines. And so got my resistance band. Had this at Powerhouse. I'm still got it. Still very, very wonderful. Still very helpful. My Pilates ring. Bam. Yep. Had this at Powerhouse. And here's my agility speed ladder. Don't want to unhook it, but it's just like a ladder you lay on the floor and you do agility, footwork drills, speed drills. Had that at Powerhouse. And had this figure 8. This was also from Powerhouse, but it was wearing out. You can see here. And so I bought another one. Ordered this one from eBay. Oh, get it down here. Yep. Ordered this one from eBay, and it only took a week. And got this one about 2 weeks ago. So it's wonderful. Now, finding weights and dumbbells is such a challenge. And just like that Crane's Detroit article said, that dumbbells have become the toilet paper of of online ordering, trying to find fitness equipment. It is extremely hard. So I got this 8-pound dumbbell at our local Walmart. There was only one. And so I thought to myself, 8 pounds. Now I used to do, at my gym, I do side rows with 25-pound dumbbells. And so this one was 8. So I'm working on my humility, because I said to myself, I only have one weight and it's only 8 pounds. And so I had to have some humility in this situation and said, 8 pounds is better than nothing. Be grateful. So that was my dumbbell. And so lastly, at the Walmart in Commerce, Michigan, which actually I used to always go to on my way home from my own gym, they had these plates. They had 4 of them. Actually, no, there were 8 total, but I bought 4. But they only had the 2.5 pound each ones. So a total of 10 pounds. And I thought to myself, this is 10 pounds. But again, humility, be grateful for this 10 pound total weights. So that's it, folks. So Rachelle is making upgrades. Rachelle is making purchases for Rachelle's Home Fitness Center. I still a gym fanatic, still love gyms, but I just recognize what a wonderful option home workouts are. I don't have a treadmill. I don't have my beloved Precore EFX machine, any of those cardio machines. I'm it. Rachelle is doing HIIT training, which I used to do a hybrid workout with machines and HIIT when I was at Powerhouse. So I'm doing exclusively HIIT, yoga and Pilates, resistance training, push-ups, some old school stuff. And so it has been so eye-opening and so humbling, but also so wonderful, because I realized just this whole great option has always existed, but I just never explored it. So I'm just, again, there's always, even in adversity, even in pandemic situations, even in challenging situations in life, we've got to look for the silver lining. We've got to look for the positive things. And I just realized, Rachelle's Home Fitness Center it just made me a better fitness leader. It just made me a better person. It's really just enhanced my own fitness journey, because it's all me now. There's no machines. It's all me. So I'm just going to get a kick out of it, and I just wanted to share that with you, as I've been texting people that have known me a long time. Actually, a buddy of mine who I knew at Barksdale, it just freaks people out when they hear that Rachelle is working out at home. Rachelle is not in a gym. Well, the gyms are closed, obviously, but people are very surprised to hear what an awesome option I think it is. So, folks, you may be in a situation where you haven't worked out because you don't have motivation to work at home. Fortunately, I'm just highly motivated, passionate about fitness, and very disciplined. But just let me challenge you. If you love gyms like I did, you got to move on to Plan B. It's been weeks now. You got to move on to Plan B. You got to keep on keeping on. And you may find out and discover, just like I have, just a wonderfully pleasant surprise to say, wow, this is really cool. I could see why people dig this now. I could see why people dig working out at home now. And so, folks, that is all I have for you today. It has been great. Next time, like I said, I'm going to be doing a quick episode from a section of Rachelle's Home Fitness Center, so stay tuned for that. But until then, remember, I am positively passionate about your leadership and success. Make it a great